Going live. Welcome to Racing Roots with Hamm. Every Monday night, we have a new episode with a new guest, and we talk about their racing roots. And tonight, our episode is brought to you by
Jersey Cape Yachts. When you've got smooth sailing on your mind, there's nothing more smooth than aboard a Jersey Cape Yachts. They're located in Lower Bank, New Jersey. Can be located and reached at 609-965-8650.
That's right. You can find them on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube channel as well. Also on Facebook. So check them out over there. But tonight, my guest is Cliff Champion. How you doing, Cliff?
Doing fine.
Good to see you, buddy.
Good to be here.
I know we're a little bit running just a few minutes behind, but it's all good because we're here. We made it, and everything is just great. And it's great to see you again. It's probably been about 2 years or so.
It's been a while.
Yeah, I think the last time I saw you was at Bible study over at Roush Yates Engines.
Yep, I believe so.
Which was very good. I believe Nick Terry was doing the Bible study too.
Yep.
And like I mentioned to you before, I had him on the show. It's been about a couple months ago probably. But all my friends here enjoyed it. So Dickie Dennis is up in Virginia, and Chad Hyder's in Ohio, Rachel Rodman in Charlotte. And thank y'all so much for tuning in. Phil Cavalli's right here with me. If you didn't recognize that voice, he's the official voice of Jersey Cape Yachts. And Samuel Gull, Lee Troutman, the whole Troutman family's tuned in here in Statesville. Brett and Carolyn, thank y'all for watching. And there'll be more coming on as we go. Mike Bear, and so Brad Downard, and Dickie Dennis is up in Virginia. We were just talking about him. Remember the infamous fence climber from 2014?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to shed that image, but we're not helping things any.
No.
So, but Cliff Champion's with me tonight, and Phil. And also we got the beer man. He's hiding back there. That's what, whenever we started the show, he's like, don't forget the audio. And I was thinking, wait a minute. I did have some music to play.
Music. Turn the music up.
No, totally forget about it. I didn't get it done in time. So, it's all good though. But you know what? I got somebody here that I guarantee you, I know you started in NASCAR in the 70s, right?
Yep.
But I can pretty much guarantee if you walked into a race shop and said, my name is Cliff Champion, people were like, man, we got to hire that guy. Is that true?
I don't know about that. Now, I kind of.
I mean, it's in your name.
Nowadays, most people probably in the shops probably wouldn't recognize me.
Yeah. Well, and that's why you're on here, because you know what? Everybody needs to know the guys that laid the path, the groundwork, the roots of racing.
Well, I got to admit, when I first started, I wasn't a big race fan.
Mm-hmm.
And I just went to the racetrack and got the job and started doing it. And all those old names, they didn't mean anything to me because I didn't follow racing before that.
Okay.
I mean, I was into drag racing and different things like that.
Yeah.
So.
Where did you grow up?
I'm originally from up in Chesapeake, Virginia Beach area.
Okay.
Stuff like that. I grew up about 2 blocks from the Rudd family.
Okay. How about that? Very cool. So you, but let's see, how much NASCAR was in that area really?
Not a whole lot. My cousin
really.
Bill Champion had his car. It was the only local car around there. Or you had to go to Richmond or some of those guys for Don Levy and people like that.
And he rode motorcycles with Joe Weatherly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, he
I
did.
sent a picture to my buddy Terry Levan up here with Tilly Harley-Davidson. And I sent him that picture because he's Harley-Davidson, obviously. Yeah. But I thought that was one of the coolest pictures. And Joe Weatherly, of course, he ended up racing in NASCAR as well.
Yeah. He lived right across the street from Bill Champion.
Wow. Very cool. They have the Joe Weatherly Museum down in Darlington at the racetrack. I remember going there when I was a little kid and riding in the Richard Petty simulator, I think it was. So the old simulator back then, you sit in there and they got this movie, big tube TV, and you're just moving the steering wheel. Yeah, but it come in the pits and then it's like drops you down. So, well, the whole thing didn't move like it would nowadays, but the screen would move. Anyway, that's another story.
They're pretty sophisticated nowadays.
So is that like your influence into getting into racing, your uncle?
Well, I started out as a kid. I always worked on cars.
Okay.
And I had, all kinds of street cars and stuff like that. But my dad knew Ricky Rudd's dad.
Oh, yeah.
So
your dad knew Ricky Rudd's dad.
He knew his dad.
Okay.
And when I got my driver's license and stuff, my dad took me over to Ricky's house, over to his dad's house, and he was building a dune buggy for Ricky's brother, actually, for AJ.
Okay.
And AJ and I were the same age. Together we were like about a month apart.
Okay.
and birthdays right there. But he had a dune buggy, so I ended up building a dune buggy, and ever since that day, we were like best friends, inseparable.
So what did you do with the dune buggy? I mean, like where'd you ride it?
Well, we weren't that far from Nag's Head.
Okay.
It's about a 3-hour drive. We'd go to Sandbridge or Nag's Head or something like that. And, I mean, we burnt the roads up every weekend.
Okay.
You know, sometimes we'd go to Nag's Head 2 or 3 times a weekend.
Wow. So those were the big dunes up there, obviously. Yep. But the ones I went to, the ones you could roll down. Is that where you rode the thing? Did you ride the dune buggy there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, we went to
pretty big dunes.
They wouldn't let you go up Jockey's Ridge, but there's a place called Penny's Hill down there, and it's in what's actually a 4-wheel drive section. That's what they call it now.
Okay.
You can't get there. There's no roads. There's nothing there down at Penny's Hill, and the only way you could get there was 4-wheel drive.
Oh, okay. So I haven't seen that.
So I was stationed down in Oceana in the Navy.
Yeah.
How about Pungo?
Oh, yeah. I worked at the drag strip at Creed's and at Pungo.
There you go. Yeah.
I worked out there setting up the lights, the timings, and the trailer and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All right. So what is that?
Oh, that's just, well, tell them.
It was an old drag strip down there. You know, we had Suffolk drag strip with Hank Hankins ran that. Hank's Body Shop, he ran that drag strip. And it was a big NHRA strip. They had a lot of the big events there and stuff. So, I mean, I saw all the big names there.
Okay.
I remember I saw Garlitz was there for one event, Don Garlitz. And I had my dad's camera, which back then it was one of those old Polaroids that the front, had the little rubber bellow in front of it, and as you moved it to focus it, they kind of moved in and out.
Okay, yeah.
Right there. Yeah. So I was they backed his car out, getting ready to go up toward the line, and I was trying to get the camera focused, and the guy was trying to push Don away, and Don held his hand up and got him to stop and waited for me to take the picture. I'm the little kid trying to focus this thing and everything, and he made him stop and get the picture in like that, and then I moved out of the way.
Oh, that's
Most
cool,
guys
man.
would have shooed you out of the way. We got to go, but he didn't.
Yeah, that's
when
pretty
he,
neat.
When he took off, you would have shooed out of the way.
Oh yeah.
For sure, yes. All right, so so who got you interested in NASCAR then? I mean, so what was your connection there?
Well, like I said, Ricky's brother and I were best friends, and when we got out of school, and he and I had a business together, rebuilding totals and stuff like that. His dad had a junkyard, so we just worked out of there, rebuilt our totals there and stuff. And then it was in 74. He came to me and said that, he said, man, let's go to Daytona for the race down there. I go, man, I ain't going down there. I said, that's like watching paint dry. I said, I ain't going to watch no race or nothing like that. He said, come on, I really want to go. I said, well, I'll go if we can get the pits, but I ain't gonna sit in the stands.
Yeah.
I said, I can't sit still that long. I'm just too energetic.
Right.
And stuff. I said, he said, well, call your cousin Bill and see if he can get us in. So I called Bill, and he said, yeah. So anyway, he and I went down there, and Bill got us in the garage. And of course, all he had was pickup help.
Oh, okay.
At the time, and we're watching the guy go, and they ran a little bit of practice and stuff. They came in, the guy was adjusting the valves, and I was watching him adjust the valves, and I could see that he wasn't real sure what he was doing, and he was messing up the adjustment a little bit. So Bill was standing over there. I went over the side. I said, Bill, I said, that guy don't know what he's doing adjusting your valves right there. I said, you can blow his motor up.
Yeah.
And he said, well, you know how to do it? I said, yeah. And I was like 20 years old. At the time, and I never worked on anything like that, before. So he went over and told the guy, he says, hey, move over, let him in here. So I adjusted the valves for it, and then AJ and I just kind of stood around and watched, and he was going to get Jim Hurtubise to qualify the car for him, and Jim went back out of the garage area, and the part of the steering broke, and everybody just sat there looking at each other, and AJ and I, well, you got a spare part? And he says, yeah, it's over in the truck. So we ran over and got it and fixed it. So that night he offered me a job.
Oh, wow.
So that's
great.
That was it right there. So
yeah, that's a great story. I'm good.
I'd work on the cars, and AJ would come. Yeah, no, I'm fine. Yeah. AJ'd come over, and he'd come on the weekends and help me change tires and help us work on the car on the weekends. Yeah, and stuff. That's how we all kind of got started into it. And then the next year, we talked Bill into letting Ricky drive the car.
Well, that's cool. I mean, that's a great story. That kind of reminds me. It's kind of like when you go to a race is when you're most likely to get hooked on it because you got the smell of the rubber, the gas, and then the fact that you did something that made something go fast or something run good. because my first experience was going to dirt tracks.
Yeah.
And then I would go and I would see, like, my dad was watching this guy over there, like, setting a timing on the engine and stuff. And I was like, you know what? I want to learn how to do that. I was like 15.
Yeah.
And so that was just kind of like, it just hooked me right there.
Well, I would think especially dirt racing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way you can capture the atmosphere of dirt racing on TV.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
not the real feel you get with the dirt hitting you in the face and the dust
Yeah.
and just the smell, everything.
Right. Exactly.
That would be hard to capture.
Yep. And that's why, you hear a lot of people say, oh, I don't like racing. I'm just, I don't care, whatever. But then you take them to a race and then they love it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. So then that was Ricky's brother. That was so how did you, when did Ricky come into the picture?
Well, AJ and I worked on the car that first year. And at the end of the season, I guess Ricky's dad talked to Bill about, he'd buy him some tires or something, like whatever. I'm sure he gave him some money and put Ricky in the car.
Okay.
Right there. But
how about that?
he actually Bill had a 71 Mercury.
Okay.
One of the Cyclones that it looked like an old Wood Brothers car, not sure or not, but I knew it was an old Holman Moody car. And we took it over to Langley, and he let AJ drive it and let Ricky drive it.
Okay.
And then whichever one was the better, and they got to drive the car, so Ricky ended up driving the car.
So what kind of track was that? Langley?
Langley Field, it's a little short track. It's famous up in Virginia.
Okay,
You know,
yeah.
everybody ran up there. There's a lot of the big championship races there and stuff.
I've heard of it. I've just never been there. Is it still there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called Larry King's Langley now, I think.
Okay. Because I know Ricky was really good at short tracks, and he was also good at road course stuff.
But, he never ran short track. That's the
Okay.
thing. All of us, his brother, none of us, ran the local, Hickory and stuff like that. I mean, when I went to Daytona, that was my first deal right there. And
Yeah.
I'd never been to a short track or anything.
Oh, okay.
Never done anything.
All right. So, so fast forward a few years later, I guess it was. So did you keep going from then on? Because I know I've seen a picture of you with Ricky. I think it was maybe 1978.
Yeah.
Thereabouts.
I did that, and then Ricky drove the car the next year, and I guess they all had a falling out and over some motor stuff right there. So he quit driving, so I went to work for James Hilton.
Okay. Yeah.
And I did that for a year, and then I worked for Richard Childress for a year
Okay.
when Richard was driving himself.
Yes. Right. So I've seen a lot of the pictures you had with were James Hilton.
Yeah.
And I know James was with us. I met him when he came through Roush Yates Engines with Nick Ramey,
Yeah.
showing him around and stuff. And man, what a great guy! What a nice, really nice guy.
I mean, he was walking history right there.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, unfortunately, we lost him. Has it been 2 years now? Maybe something
Yeah.
like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So that was your involvement with the. So what year did you? Okay, let's say Ricky Rudd was it 78 or 79? Rookie of the year or something like that. He was running for 79.
It was the 77.
77. Okay.
77.
Okay.
Now,
And
that's funny. We were talking about that just the other day.
yeah.
That, I mean, we were all, at 77, I was probably 24 years old, something like that. Mm-hmm. And we were all in our early 20s, and Ricky's 3 years younger than his brother and I.
Yeah.
So just thinking about it now, that his dad he would give us money and give us, the truck, trailer, a race car, motors, all this stuff. And we're just three stupid kids.
Yeah.
Headed out on the road. We ran to California and won Rookie of the Year that year out in California.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, I mean, I've got a couple of step kids now. When they were 24, I'm like, I didn't trust them to take the car down the street,
Yeah.
They wanted to go around the block, much less just take stuff like that and go to California.
Right. So I guess with his dad having the business that he had, he was like, hey, this would be a good car for y'all to take and go with.
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, he built the first hauler that we had. It was a big long dually, and he took a single cab off another truck and found a box off of a wrecked truck, and he put it all together, and that was our hauler right there.
Yeah, I bet those were the best times back in those days.
Oh, they were. It was unfortunately Ricky's brother AJ passed away. It'll be coming up a year here on February 22nd. But it was funny. They had a truck they had bought from a drag racer. After that first truck, it was a kind of like a furniture truck, one of those big, long, solid trucks with the box went over top of the cab for like a sleeper.
Yeah.
And one of the local drag racers around there had it. We bought it from him, and that's one we took to Ontario to race out there, Rookie of the Year. And we're on the way home, and I think I'd been driving like, half the night or something like that. And we had got some food earlier. And I'd been driving almost all night. And there's the sun's coming up, and I'm driving down the road tired and like that. And all of a sudden, this spitball hits me in the back of the neck.
Oh, yeah.
Because the sleeper's right behind the cab.
Yeah.
Right there. And I slammed on the brakes and slid over the side of the road. I was going to whip somebody's butt.
Yeah.
Right there. Because that's the last thing you want to feel in the back of your neck when you've been up all night long driving.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And I always blame Ricky for that, because he was the kind of guy that would do something. He's always a jokester, too.
Yeah.
But just before Ricky's brother, AJ, passed away, he was telling the story, and he says, yeah, he slipped up. He said, yeah. He said, I hit Cliff in the back of the neck with that spitball.
Oh,
I said,
gosh.
all these years, I blamed Ricky. And right here, you finally tell me it was you.
Yes. How about that? So where did he get the nickname Rooster? You know that one? Or?
Not really. I mean, I know people just started calling him out because he could be cocky.
Yeah.
I mean, he was.
Sure.
He'd come up on step in a minute. And he didn't take much from anybody, and that's one reason that him and Earnhardt and some of the guys didn't get along real good, because I mean, to him, Earnhardt was just somebody else.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the way I've always looked at it with me. I mean, people say stuff about these guys, but I grew up around them. I mean, Richard Petty and all them. I mean, I probably realize now more than I did then how great Richard Petty is. It didn't mean as much to me at the time, because Richard's birthday is like July the 2nd, I think, and mine's July 3rd.
Yeah.
So we'd be in the garage area or something, and Richard would get a cake, and we might have been right beside him sometime or something. He'd give me some of his cake.
Yeah.
For my birthday, he'd give me a little cake right there.
Kyle's is I think June the 2nd. So, but yeah, every time I see Richard, though, I'll look at him like if it's on TV or whatever, and I'm like, man, look how much that guy has accomplished in so many years.
Oh my gosh.
And he's still just out there going.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate
amazing.
to still have him around.
Yeah.
Very fortunate.
Yeah, with as many wins.
83 years old.
And
Yeah.
How many sports do they have their stars around that long?
right.
And it's not like he's just coming and makes an appearance and does a radio, appearance on the or TV or something at the track. But I mean, he's there working.
Right.
Every week he's involved.
Yeah.
He's not an owner that just sits up at the skybox or nothing. You look, he's on top of the truck with his watches or radios, and he's working.
Well, let's name some of them. Him, all right, Richard Petty, Leonard Wood
Yeah.
would be a definite another one. Just a living legend
Yeah.
that you'll see at the racetrack.
Yeah.
Building a carburetor. Well, back in. And some more. I know there's more.
And
Well,
most
Richard
of these guys,
Childress, yeah,
when you
he's up
see
there.
them,
Waddell
they're
Wilson.
just
Waddell Wilson, yeah.
Well, I was
Yeah.
going to say I have been so fortunate in my career to work with some of the greatest people that there were. At the time. I of course worked with James Hilton and Richard Childress, and but as far as crew people and crew chiefs, I mean, I worked with Waddell,
Yeah.
Dale Inman.
Right. Yeah.
And there was, of course, crew guys. There was Dan Ford and Slick Poston and just all kinds of people. I mean, I was really fortunate to work with talented people.
Because it's like you got a transmission and gear guys and things like that. But they also would do like, let's say, all the plumbing in the car. They may do all the electrical as well. And y'all were, back in those days, y'all worked a lot. And the younger people nowadays just don't realize really how good they got it made when they work in NASCAR now.
Oh, they don't. When I started out with James Hilton, I mean, we would, Kurt Shelmerdine and I were working for him together at one time, and he had about a 19-foot little travel trailer beside the shop, and Kurt and I lived in that thing. He had one end up, and I had it the other. Okay. And it was funny because we would work till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Every night, at least 11 o'clock. And then have to be back at 8 o'clock next morning.
And then you'd have to drive to the tracks a lot of times.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, most of the time I got to Riverside in California.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We didn't take no planes back then.
Yes.
you were driving.
Yeah.
Which I'd rather drive, because we got to see some sights, that I never would have seen before.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I love driving through Arizona.
Right.
When you go across country, from here to Texas is all the same. But once you get to Texas, it's just flat as a flitter out there. I mean, there ain't nothing. It's just flat as it could be. And then when you get to Arizona, it looks like there's cactuses and stuff and mountains. It looks like cowboys and Indians could jump out at any minute. I mean, it hadn't changed out there. It just
It's funny. Every time I hear that, I always think about the movie Dumb and Dumber when he's driving the wrong way on Route 66, and he's like, "That John Denver's full of what." Rocky Mountain High, I guess.
So on those trips, Cliff, tell us a little story. You ever had a driver on a long trip like that? Maybe a good story about, you guys leaving the driver behind at a gas station or something?
No, not really. We were pretty calm about some of the worst things we used to do was because we all grew up together. As far as Ricky and all of us is,
Sorry.
You get ready to go in the shower or something, and we'd always, first thing somebody take while you're in the shower, they'll come in there and take a big glass of ice water and pour over the shower stall. While you're in there hot, it just makes you tighten up. Well, the next thing you know, it develops into a water bucket.
Right. Well, those are probably the more tamer days.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, though. Let me get this right quick. This guy on the phone might be able to tell you how he got the name Rooster.
Rooster.
Hey, Ricky. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, David. Hey, Cliff. Hey, how you guys doing?
Good.
Doing great. About yourself?
It's Ricky Rudd calling in. I have to. I got to get Cliff on that water bucket. I think he's the one that started that water bucket shower routine way back in the day.
Well, if you try and get me back, I'm going to tell that story about throwing you out of the room at Talladega in your underwear.
Well, I'm glad my memory's not real good because I don't remember that. But listening to you all talk, and it's kind of neat to hear you talk about the old days because a lot of those, heck, I probably bounced off too many walls. I forgot a lot of that. And my memory's being refreshed. It's pretty neat.
Well, Ricky, it's cool to have you call in, but I didn't tell Cliff that you were going to call.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
That's a surprise. Because when we were getting ready to start, I started to say, well, I wonder if I could get Ricky on the phone or get y'all a call or something like that, and get him to say a little something.
Surprise.
Yeah, surprise. Pleasant surprise.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm glad you guys started early. My bedtime's about 8 o'clock now. All the old folks go to bed about 8, so I'm glad you started early.
There you go. We just had a comment from Samuel Guill. I'm sorry if I butchered that name. He says, my wife Debbie and Linda gave Ricky the Rooster nickname. So I was asking that question, Ricky. You probably heard that, but how did you get that nickname?
Gosh, I'm trying to think, David. It seemed like to me it was around the time that Richard Broom was our crew chief, and I'm not sure what happened. He just, I think he got me riled up. He used to try to get me fired up, so he thought I drove better if I got mad.
That's right.
And so he would, and I think that's where the Rooster. He called it. He said, I'm not a very big guy at all. He called me a Bantam Rooster, so the Bantam went away and just called me Rooster.
That's great. So I sent you pictures one time, and I know you've seen them many times, but they're pretty popular. You had the black eyes, you had your eyelids taped open. Tell us about that. And I know you said you remember the pain that went with it.
Well, it was just back in that day, you did what you had to do, and I don't think it was anything that the next guy wouldn't have done, but I just remember it was a long work in progress to get to the level of being able to have the opportunity to drive for a great team like Bud Moore's. And I finally got to that point. And the very first race of the season, actually the pre-race, it was it used to be called the Bush Clash and the Bud Shootout, and I'm not sure what they call it today. But anyway, ended up getting wrecked and getting hurt in that. And I just knew that I had to get back on that horse pretty quick because I didn't want to think about it too much because I might not have gotten back in the car. So I just sort of just blocked it out and did whatever I needed to do. And I think the duct tape just came out of necessity. I had trouble with my eyes were swelled up so much that I'd get into the corners and I couldn't see. The G-force would pull them down and they'd kind of half close your eyesight off. So I wasn't sure if that was what it was or not. And when I got into the garage stall, I remember talking to Bud and, we got talking, and I'm not sure who came up with the tape idea, but the duct tape happened to be handy and practice was still going. And so we, you do what you had to do with what you had to work with. And it actually, it worked. I was able to run the whole weekend by just taping those, baggy eyelids up to my forehead, and it worked. So probably not, you look back at it now, I guess I was never given credit for being the smartest guy in the garage area, but it worked. So
That was a cheap facelift. No?
Yeah, there you go.
yeah.
They didn't call it Bud Moore Engineering for nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. What's your
That's right.
Yes. Hey, what's your earliest memory of Cliff?
Gosh, I'm trying to think. I mean, he lived down the street. He actually, Linda, my wife, he lived almost directly behind her house. And so I just remember Cliff showing up about her and him talking about the dune buggy stories. I remember him showing up about during those days when him and my brother were both, I think, working on building dune buggies. My brother actually worked for the man that built the molds and actually built the bodies themselves. And Cliff was on the mechanical side of it. And I mean, he literally lived. I'd ride my bike down there to see what he was working on. I think if I remember right, he was working on his dune buggy. They had a brick ranch house with patio doors, and I think I remember right. He was building his dune buggy in his living room, a den of his father's house.
It was in the den on top of the pool table. I built the motor right there. Yeah. Sure was.
Yeah, so that was the earliest days I remember, and he was always tinkering with motors and stuff. But I was going a different route. I was racing go-karts and racing motorcycles, and we crossed paths occasionally. Once a week or so, but. He was working, and I guess I considered it work, but it was probably more playing, riding the dirt bikes and stuff in that day. But anyway, he was just one of these guys that was just really mechanically just sharp. So when you started going car racing, you definitely wanted someone like that to be on your team. Even though Cliff was a drag racer, but it didn't take him long to sort of adapt to the cars. And again, you're talking about 16, 17-year-old kids at the time.
Yeah, for sure. Ricky, tell me about this car. I saw a picture on Cliff's Facebook. Well, I sent it to you too. It says Bobby Isaac on the door, and it's the number 3, that white car, and you're getting a picture with that car. Yeah,
that was our really first race car that my dad had bought. Well, actually, it was the second one, but the first one that was a cup car. And Robert G. and my dad actually were friends from the. Robert G. used to live in Norfolk, Virginia, before he moved to the Charlotte area, and that's. People don't know who Robert G. is. He's just a brilliant guy on race car fabrication and bodies back in that day, and he's Dale Jr.'s grandfather. So, but Robert was just a super talented guy, and this car was one that Robert G. had built along with, I guess, Buddy. I think Buddy Parrott was involved in it. There was Raymond Fox, Ray Fox Jr. was involved in it. So it was a really nicely put together race car. So they had built it just to run a few races, and Bobby Isaac drove it like 3 races that year, and the last race Bobby drove it was at the Atlanta race, which would have been going back here. It had to have been 74, 75, the last race of the year at Atlanta. And then my dad worked it out. We bought the car basically right there. I think they pulled the motor out of it, and we brought the car back to our shop, and that's kind of how it started. But that's what the 3 was. It was actually Bobby Isaac, and the car owner was Robert G. and a group of 2 or 3 people together owned that car. And that's kind of how the 3 number got to the Childress bunch. It was kind of a roundabout way. Cliff probably knows more about it than I do, but my recollection was Richard called our shop after we got the car home, wanted to know if we were going to run the 3 car because we were entitled to it since we bought from the owners that had it before. And the 3 at that time didn't really mean anything to us. We were going to run the 22 number. And if I remember right, that's how I think Richard has a different recollection of it, but that's mine, and I could be wrong. Cliff probably knows the answer to that, but I'm pretty sure that's where the 3 got. That's when Richard Childress got the 3 car, and before Earnhardt, Childress actually ran that. He changed from 96 to the 3 car.
Yeah, that's the way I understand it. When I got to Richards, he was already running the 3 when I was there. But from everything I understand, it happened exactly like he said. Okay,
that's cool. I'm going to have Larry Pollard on with me next week. And I believe he worked over there, too.
He's a good guy. I worked with Larry at when
Larry,
we had the
Larry was my crew chief when I was at Richard Childress. I had 2 crew chiefs over there, and I think one was Kurt Shelmerdine, and the other one was Larry Pollard. I'm not sure exactly how that all was, but it seemed like for a very short period. Larry is more the car chief, but I think for some reason he ended up being the crew chief for a while over there. So it's kind of funny you got him coming on next week.
Yeah, that's a coincidence right there. Very cool. So what was your favorite memory with Cliff here, with Cliff Champion? Maybe a win or I see a lot of pictures of you two conversing, and I'm sure you probably don't remember what you were talking about. I'm sure he probably wasn't telling you how to drive the car, but you know,
I don't know. Cliff wasn't short of his opinion, giving his opinion, whether you want to hear it or not. But he was pretty savvy. You know, some guys are just naturally gifted, and some have to work at it. And I'm glad Cliff came along, because I wasn't. But if you rated my abilities as a driver and a mechanic, I'd probably be okay in the driver category. But when it came to being a mechanic, I think Cliff was telling me the story the other day. He was telling somebody they were asking about me, and they just said it was a good thing Ricky learned could drive pretty good, because he sure didn't know how to work on anything. So that's kind of how it went. Cliff,
I always
Cliff
tell
would
a story
work on the
about
stuff I would tear up.
I tell a story about Ricky when he had his wife's car. Linda had a Datsun B210, and Ricky brought it out the shop one day. Was going to change the oil in it and tune it up for her, and. Of course, he got the oil changed and, change the points and spark plugs and all that in it. And he got the timing so far off. They lived 12 miles from the shop to the house. She burned a piston in 12 miles on a streetcar.
wow.
So that's when I started telling it's a good thing.
It was just pinging a little bit. I figured it'll be okay till I got home.
Yeah. Nice try.
Yes. You ever hear of pre-ignition, spark knocking, and all that kind of stuff? Lean mix.
Yeah, some of my great memories with Ricky was, it meant something special to me, and Ricky probably doesn't even remember it, but it was important to me, was the first time Ricky and I really worked together after he had, got into the big time, was I got to be the crew chief over at Digard when he was there.
Yeah.
And we got our first pole together. I believe it was Martinsville. And then we sat on the pole again at Nashville. And I'm not sure which order they came in, but I believe Martinsville was first right there. And we probably should have won the race at Nashville. I mean, we had everybody smoked right there. I mean, we had a straightaway lead all night long. We had a straightaway lead. And that's when I really learned about NASCAR is in practice, we'd sit on the pole and we're sitting there and we're slinging springs, that thing changing sway bars. We're changing everything. And Richard Petty walked over and he goes, "What are you guys doing?" I said, "I'm trying to make this thing better for the race." He said, "Not here." He said, "Just put the springs in you qualified with and just forget it. That's the best you're going to get."
That's
right
it,
there.
huh?
And we tried a few more things. And that's what we ended up doing, was running that right there. But I'd say it was probably 3/4 of the way through the race, and we still had a straightaway lead on everybody. Every time we'd break away after a caution or something, and we came in, and we came back out after the green flag, and we couldn't keep up. We were running fourth.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, what happened? And we're struggling just to run fourth right there. I mean, that's all Ricky can do. And when the race is over, I think Benny Parsons won the race in the MC Anderson car. I walked down to Victor Circle, and it turned out he had left side tires on the right.
Oh, how about that?
So then I walked down. I think Bobby Allison finished second. I walked down there, and he had left side tires on the right. And whoever was third, I checked all 3 cars ahead of us, and everybody had left side tires on the right.
Oh, yeah.
So I went to Dick Beatty, and I said, "Dick," I said, "all them guys got left side tires on." He says, "Let me tell you something." He said, "You worry about your car, and we'll worry about theirs." Yes, sir. And that was
Dick
the end of
Beatty,
it right
how
there.
about that? I remember passing by Dick Beatty's house all the time. He had all the Winston vehicles out there.
Yeah.
Legendary.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the Gatorade car, I'm assuming. The
Yeah.
Digard. And I told John Bryan that Cliff Champion was going to be on. I sent him a link, and he said he'll probably talk about Ricky Rudd.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, that's good. And I said, coincidentally, I don't know if I mentioned it to him, but yeah, I might try to have Ricky call in. So
Well, so a lot of my career's tied in with that. It started off there.
yeah, absolutely, man.
Well, I'm gonna let you guys keep talking, because this is Cliff's show. So, but anyways, good talking and reminiscing with you guys. And David, you do a good job with the show. And
Thank you, Ricky.
Cliff, it's good hearing you talk about the old days. Y'all
Yeah.
take care. Thank you.
You
All
too,
right, thank
Ricky.
you, Ricky.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rick.
All right, see y'all. Bye.
See you, bud.
Wow.
All right.
That was nice of him.
Huh?
That was a
was.
pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He must really like you. He calls in.
I don't know about that, but
I know, right? Well,
I'm
y'all-
glad he did anyway.
Yeah. Well, y'all go way back, and you could
Yeah.
say you were instrumental in his at doing good, because I mean, y'all basically grew up together. You were closer with his younger brother, or was his younger brother, right? Or you were closer with his brother. The chair does that. It's got a mind of its own. That's what I was doing earlier. My chair had sunk down, and it was kind of kept sinking. And I saw Phil do it too. But yeah, you were definitely instrumental in helping him throughout his career. And I remember one of the probably the most memorable races for me at the track with Ricky was when he won in 1999. I think it was 99 at Martinsville. I'm pretty sure it was because Sterling, I was jackman for Sterling then, and Sterling was running so good. This is my Sterling Martin story, I guess. He was running so good, and I was like, this is it. We're going to win this race, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And but we had a lot of issues between, let's see, it was like the crane cams and there was crane distributors and whatever.
And Ricky was whooped after that race.
He was.
gosh,
he,
yes.
he
Remember
climbed
that?
out. Yeah, that's
Oh,
what.
my
Oh,
goodness.
he didn't climb out. They had to pull him out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He couldn't climb out.
I think he was
And-
sick or something going
No,
into it. I
what
thought.
had happened is during the race he was overheating, and when they came in to cool him off, they pulled the cool down tank that has water in it, but the hose is black, setting on hot pavement, and that hot water in that line is what they put in behind him on the seat, and it literally turned to a vapor, and it scalded his back.
His cool suit went out
Yeah,
and everything.
yeah.
And I mean, he was really exhausted. I mean, I don't know how he kept up those last laps
No, he
in
would-
there. I mean, it
'cause
was just
yeah,
sheer will that
It's
kept
like
him
Scott
going.
said, he was sick beforehand, but when he
Yeah.
knew he could win, he did not want to get out
No,
of the
he
car.
wouldn't get out front.
Yeah.
And we begged him because we were afraid for his health. I
Yeah,
mean,
I was in Victory Lane. I remember he had to sit down, and the medics all came in and treated him. He was
we
in
laid
pain.
him down on the ground.
He was in pain.
We laid him on the ground, and I
Yeah.
told the guys, I said, somebody go get me some fans and generators and stuff right there. And we just put fans around, and I made everybody get back. All the press was down there in his face. I said, hey, y'all step back. He's got to have some air.
Yeah.
'Cause he was in bad shape. He
Yeah.
really was.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was I don't know if that was it was close. Well, he was winning. I don't know. He's I don't even know how much. I should probably know how many races he's won, but I do remember him running very well on a lot of the short tracks and road courses.
Yeah.
Was one of his very strong suits.
Well, he was good with the road courses, from the go-kart days and stuff like that. Usually that's what they ran, was a lot of road courses and stuff like that. They ran a few ovals, but most of it was road course and stuff. And he was always very good. Now, Ricky's brother, I would say he was probably just as good as Ricky,
Yeah.
but Ricky had the natural talent.
Yeah. Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
Ricky, he could just get in it and go. When they took that car to Langley that day, Ricky was running fast within 2 or 3 laps, and his brother, it took him about 10 laps to get there.
So what did his brother end up doing throughout his career?
Well, once we all got going, it's funny because I had gone to, I don't know if I was at Childress's then. No, I was down at James Hilton's, and they bought their own car, and I came home. And we started running that, and we had a motor builder down in Charlotte that was building the motors for us. And we were keeping the car up, and we got a motor back, and we kept having trouble with the motors every now and then. So I looked at the block, and you could see the hone marks were still in the block. They hadn't even been honed out good.
Yeah.
I mean, the board bar, from the board bar marks.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Right
yeah,
there.
Yeah, so it hadn't been honed; it was only bored.
Yeah, it was bored and just lightly honed. You can still see the board bar marks in it. So it wasn't a very good job, whoever did the machine work. And I told Alvin, he sent me, I had a little Vegas station wagon at the time. He sent me back down there with my car, and I watched the guy dyno a motor, and all he did was fire it up, make a run with it, and took it off.
Oh.
Didn't really do anything, didn't change anything, didn't do
Right, yeah.
Just made sure it ran pretty much a run-in stand for him and everything. And I came home, told Alvin, and we loaded everything up in my car and brought it home.
Yeah.
And I was going to start building a motor because that's the funny part. When I first started working for Bill Champion, we ran that race at Daytona, and he cracked a block. So he came home, and the motor was blown in the car. So he turns around, he says, I got a new block. Be here in a couple of days. He said, go ahead and get that one out. And I was the motor builder.
There you go.
So
Yes. So you're like, you need to bore it and leave about 5 thousandths to hone out.
Well, what I did is, I was building motors in. So when I came, they brought the motors back from down in Charlotte area. I went and told AJ, because he had messed with some boat motors and done some things, built some motors and stuff like that. I said, look, I just wrote down on a sheet of paper. I said, look, give me about 3.5 thousandths clearance on the rods, and give me about 3.5 to 4 thousandths on the mains right there, and give me 18 thousandths end gap on the rings. And I handed it to him on a piece of paper. I said, I can't keep the car up and the motor too. Here, you build the motors.
There you go.
And so he built the motors from then on, and he turned out to be a very good motor builder. I mean, his motors always had good power and everything. But I don't know. Ricky'd always say that, how brothers are.
Yeah, for sure.
and stuff. And drivers, they never have enough horsepower. They always tell you they don't have enough because they want you to build more.
Right, of course, yes. Those were the days back when you had the big engine parts, big journals and big journal cranks and stuff. And
Everything heavy.
Throughout the years, everything started getting smaller and smaller, especially on plate tracks, and lighter, and then restrictor plate stuff, and then they kind of did away with some of that. But anyway, that's another thing. What's up, Jana? I guess Jana's still down in Florida. Scott's wife down there. She's tuned in, and Don Clark's here in Statesville, and Chad and Samuel. I think it's Guill. Sorry, it's putting the I and L's together with my eyes. It says, great interview. Good to hear a couple Chesapeake boys, and rest in peace, AJ. And, so. All right, so Jim Dooley, he says, I drove a Vega station wagon in 1975, too. How about that? When I was a kid, we had a 1970 Roadrunner. And I remember my pulling out a performance drive or whatever, Cedarville Lane, and we turned, and then here comes this car around the corner, ran right into us, and just smacked the front end. The guy gets out of the car, he's got blood on his face. He's in a smaller car, and we're jumping around in the back seat, kids, me and my brother and my sister, and then but we were fine, that big old car. And then it sat in our yard there in the driveway, and then somebody come along one day and said, "Hey, what are you gonna do with that car?" And my dad's like, "Just take it." And I'm like, man, if I could get that car back, if I'd have just kept it for 40 years, I would have something, man.
Well, I tell you, it's funny. Talk about the dune buggies again. I tried to find mine when I left town racing. When I moved down to Charlotte racing, my dad sold mine. It had been sitting around. The Hamm. When I left, I drove the Vega down there, and I thought about it a couple of years ago, maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago, something like that. I said it'd be neat to find my dune buggy and put that thing back together. And I called around. I found out one of the boys that bought it, and he sold it to the mayor of Virginia Beach.
Oh.
And he took it to his place down in Nags Head. And I actually called the guy and talked to him and stuff like that. He couldn't remember who he sold it to, so I couldn't track it down. And I always kept telling AJ's boys, he's got 2 sons, Chris and Jason. I always kept telling them, y'all need to drag your dad's dune buggy out, because his dad still had his. His was sitting in the back of the junkyard, just sitting out there in the weeds somewhere. I said, y'all need to drag that thing out and fix it back up for your dad and just surprise him with it.
Yeah.
Something like that. So it was a good surprise. A couple of months after AJ passed away, his sister called me and said that they had decided that it probably meant more to me than anybody else. So they gave me his dune buggy.
Wow.
So I've got it at home now, trying to tear it apart and rebuild that thing.
I'll comment.
Very cool.
David, I've been to his shop, and he's got several projects that people bring to him, and he's such a good-hearted guy. He's got one tractor he's in there working on right now that a 90-year-old man is waiting his dreams to get on that tractor, and David is going to make sure that man rides that tractor. So I can understand that.
Yes,
I admire
absolutely.
that, yeah.
He's a Korean War vet. And,
Oh, wow.
And I've actually gone and picked this tractor up before, and it wasn't running, so I got it running for him, running good and all that kind of stuff. And then about, 6 months later, his daughter called me back and said, hey, we got a problem with the tractor. So I went back over there and picked it up in China Grove and brought it back to my shop, and then figured out it's got a blown head gasket. So anyway, I'm ordering parts right now and going to get that back together and get it over there. But that is an awesome feeling, seeing him happy to see his tractor, because all he wants to do is get on it and ride around on the bush hog.
Sure.
And it would run, but it wasn't strong enough to pull that bush hog, because it was 2 cylinders were firing against each other. So but anyway,
I want to get the dune buggy back together and get all of AJ's brothers and sisters and everybody down to Outer Banks, take them back down to Nags Head and let them all ride the thing down there and stuff like that. That'd be probably take me a year or 2 to do that, a couple of years to do it.
Yeah.
When you get down there to Nags Head and you do that dune buggy and you pull it up there in the sand, you get off. You need to take a little dinghy out and get on a Jersey Cape yacht. Just get on a Jersey Cape yacht. They have everything from a 31-foot yacht up to a 66-foot Diablo, the big devil.
That's pretty nice.
And they do custom yachts. You sit down with Wayne and Janine Pugliese. You design exactly what you want. Even if you have a favorite yacht that you've had for years, they can redesign that, refab that. Got to get a hold of them.
And it'd be perfect for Lake Norman too.
It should. Would a yacht fit on Lake Norman?
Yeah. When I had my charter boat business, on Lake Norman. My
Yeah.
first one was 80 foot, and my
Wow.
second one was 100 foot.
Yeah, I've seen your charter out there. A lot of people got on that. That was a nice deal. You
Oh, a
had
lot
there.
of-
It was a party boat.
A lot of memories from
Oh,
that.
yes, yes.
A lot of race. We used to do parties for Johnny Benson and Robbie Gordon, a lot of different drivers and stuff like that. You know, we did Jimmy Johnson when he won his first race. We did his victory party on the boat,
Yeah.
and some of the guys had to work that day, and it was strange, but it was funny because we took about 60 people out for 2 hours. And we came back to the dock. We kept it at a place called Midtown Sundries on the lake, right there, a little bar place, restaurant. And while we were waiting for the guys that worked that day, they were going to come out and get on. Well, some of the people got off, and then the new crowd got back on, plus some. So we probably took about 60 people out the first time, and I think the second time we probably went out with about 40 people. And while we were waiting, I remember that 2 or 3 of them went inside, and I think Ricky Hendricks was one of them. Yeah, he was one of them involved in it, and Eddie Dixon. 2 or 3 of them went inside, and they couldn't wait at the dock.
Yeah.
So while they got in there, they bought a bottle of tequila, and they all had about 3 or 4 shots apiece,
Wow.
and then bought a bottle of tequila to go.
Oh my gosh.
And when we did the party, of course, they get free beer
Yeah.
from Bud and stuff. They had 40 cases of beer put on the boat,
Wow.
and about 6 cases of Smirnoff
Yeah.
right there. And when we got back to the dock that night after 2-hour trips, now this is a small group of people.
Yeah. For 40 cases of beer. And
We had 14 cases of beer left. They drank 36 cases of beer,
oh my gosh, that's crazy.
and all the Smirnoff was gone.
yeah.
And all this.
Yeah.
And I told the girl, my crew that was working for me that night, said, "Oh my God." I said,
Yeah.
"Don't try this at home. These guys are professional. They do this every week."
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yes. Especially when you have that beer sponsor, you're gonna
Yeah.
typically drink more.
Sure.
I think we had when I graduated college. Actually, when I was working dealership, and anyway, I ended up having the Oldsmobile Master Tech, and we had a little party on that. I think it was the same. It must have been the same boat because it was
Well,
up
there was 2 of us
Yeah.
up until about,
was it the Catawba Queen?
well, Catawba Queen has a big riverboat up there. They're a little bit different.
Oh,
They
that was a different one then.
The most of them you buy tickets.
yeah.
Those you buy tickets on and go out. They do some private charter, but most of their businesses buy tickets and go out.
Yeah.
Dinner parties, things like
This
that.
might have been before because this was in '93 probably.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but it was off
Could
of
have
that.
been.
It was out of that dock. It was before I met you.
Yeah.
Before I knew you, for sure. And Jana was talking about the girls there were watching for Scott. So and I did have the camera on him now, but we're switched back over here. I had the camera on him for Phil's commercial there about Jersey Cape yachts. And what's up, Ray? SC Pyro. We did have a good question because I did definitely want to talk to you about this, about Tim Richmond.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the fun part. We want to hear some Richmond stories.
Yes. So Mark Wright asked the question. Ask him about the 2 wins with Tim Richmond.
Well, both of those were at Riverside. And now, I really worked with Tim before the Wild Days came on. So I don't really have any wild stories with Tim.
Yeah.
He was a great guy to be around at the time, fun guy. I mean, he had a house on the lake, and I would go over there sometimes. He had a boat and stuff, but it was amazing to watch Tim on a road course. It was crazy because he would be out there practicing, and if there was any way they could, the other drivers and crew chiefs would load up in cars or vans and go out and watch him go through the S's and stuff like that because they couldn't believe he was going. I mean, he was going through. He wasn't going to the S's. He was going straight. He just made it straight down through there.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah. I mean, and he was something to watch, which I didn't get a chance to do it because I'm busy on the radios and watching for him and stuff like that. But that was great experiences working with Tim. He was a nice guy, big-hearted guy, do anything for you and stuff.
So when you watch the movie Days of Thunder, does that bring back memories, or do you think that's nowhere close to the real thing?
Well, I mean, it's based on the real thing. So, I mean, you
Yeah.
recognize some stuff. I mean, it's like any movie that you see, you know, I mean, you couldn't make a movie; it'd go too slow and everything. So they embellish a little bit of stuff and they condense it and make things, but it is along the right lines,
yeah.
stuff like that.
Were
But
you-
they didn't really see them working out of a barn like they did. That kind of stuff didn't happen, but
Right.
they did have little shops.
Yeah, but
Wasn't
that
much
little
bigger than-
barn's still there down in Mooresville.
Sure. Yeah,
Which is
I go
pretty
by there and
cool.
look at
We
it
get
all the time. Remember
Yeah.
that?
Yes. Were you involved in any of the movies that were made? There was like Stroker Ace and Smokey and the Bandit was kind of involved with the racetrack, and you were with the Copenhagen team, right, for a little while.
No, yeah, I was Benny's crew chief over with the Copenhagen team, but
yeah. I
we
think
weren't
that's the
involved in the
Skull
movie
with
stuff or
them.
anything
Yeah.
like that. A lot
Yeah.
of that was more of the Skull with Travis Carter and them.
Yeah, I
along
remember
that.
that. Yeah, because my wife's dad is Kenny Thompson.
Yeah.
And he had built some of the some of the cars for the Smokey and the
yeah.
Bandit because he worked over there with the Hal Needham and Burt Reynolds and Harry Gant and all that stuff.
Kenny Thompson's probably one of the most talented fabricators around
Yeah.
that I've ever known.
Yeah, I've seen his work when I go over there. I just look at it. I'm like, so. And what amazes me is he'll say, "I built this," and it's like, you might think, well, he ordered this panel, this body panel, and this body panel, and this part, whatever. But no, he's like, no, I built the whole thing.
Yeah.
Except for the tires, or
He
or
could take
maybe
about
the
anything
wheels.
and make something out of it. The first time I went over to his shop, I'm looking around and, when I was growing up, Car Craft and magazines like Hot Rod and
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
were, it was popular. It's what you did when you were in high school. I mean, everybody else is looking at their books, and I've got a super stock or some kind of magazine. They're looking at Carcraft.
Same here.
And Kenny, there was a bunch of Carcraft magazines up on the wall up there, and one of them was like a little yellow coupe that had like a 429 Boss 429 engine in it or something like that.
Yeah.
I go, man, that is cool. He says, yeah, I built that. That was my car right there. I mean, he's been on the covers of magazines and stuff. I mean, he's a low key guy, but very talented. Very talented.
Yeah, if you hadn't seen my video I put together on him, it's on here. Maybe I'll put the link right up here, whatever right up here. So check it out.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat. So Janine Pugliese is tuned in. What's she saying there, Phil?
Oh, she wants to know if somebody here has a birthday coming up. And the only one I can think of is our host, David Hamm's going to have a birthday this Thursday. That's
about
Mr.
that?
Hamm on the harmonica.
Yeah, I'm going to wish you a happy birthday now because I'm probably going to be around Thursday. So
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate
get
that.
your early one in there.
I'll be sitting here Thursday morning, and I'll have to read off the birthdays, and then I'll say, hey, there I am.
Yes,
whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of people may not know that about Tim Richmond is Tim was friends with a lot of drag racers and stuff also. Him and Raymond Beadle were real good friends.
Okay.
And I remember going one time, and a lot of the drag racers were like when I was on the truck series for a little while. I mean, you traveled when they were, their shop, they couldn't drive all the way back to Texas
Yeah.
to in between races and stuff. So when they were running up here, they would go to Tim's house. And you'd go over there, and they've got the funny car in the driveway, rebuilding motors, switching motors out and stuff like that, and firing that thing up right there in this driveway right up there,
Yeah.
right down by the lake.
Now, was Raymond Beadle, was he with was that Blue Max?
Yeah.
Blue Max, yeah.
Yep.
27 car?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, he owned all that. He owned all
Been
that.
a while
Yeah.
since I heard that. Okay. So, but all right, 27 car. So was that Tim Richmond's? All right, I say 27 because he was with the old Milwaukee.
Yeah.
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 Okay. So,
Yeah, that was Raymond's team when
yeah.
he was driving then.
Now, I'd have to ask David a question. Have you ever, I know you're like the master of NASCAR engines, but have you ever looked at those NHR engines or been around them, and does that bewilder you at all? Or
Yeah, because one cylinder in an NHR engine is the same amount as a full NASCAR engine.
wow,
that's
an unknown that I never heard. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yep, because the
there's how many
between the
cylinders?
bore and the stroke, the big pistons in it.
8.
So there's all that CFM, and you add the nitro in there and all that. So then, bam.
And how many cylinders are on those?
8.
Drag? 8? Yeah. Gosh, 8 times the power.
Yeah.
Well, what amazes me is, and I didn't know it till they mentioned it somewhere the other day, is, I mean, of course, the drag motors are going to turn thousands of RPMs.
Yes.
But seeing as how a top fuel car only runs for 3-point-some seconds now,
Yeah. It's just like bam, and
that
it's
they only
done.
turn about 300 or 400 RPMs in the whole run.
Wow.
Because if they turn 10,000 RPMs in a minute, how many RPMs are they going to turn in 3 seconds?
Oh, yeah.
I never thought about it that way. Like, oh my God, that thing is coming apart. Yeah, it's not.
No, you're right. You're right.
Yes.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 300. That's it.
Is it? Yeah. Yeah, we need to add up. Let's see how many horses between the beginning of the track to the end of the track. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's going to get astronomical.
And like a
All these
difference
numbers
between a little
going through my head.
14-foot John boat and a Jersey Cape yacht.
Yeah.
All that power in those yachts.
I might have to check out one of those Jersey Cape yachts.
You got it. I'm telling you, they'll hook you up. You know, they even have a mobile service unit to take care of you. So storage, everything.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Get that business going again, I guess.
Yeah.
I'd love to, yeah.
Dickie Dennis says 10,000 horsepower. That's huge.
Yeah. And I mean, you figure a NASCAR engine, we were getting up close to 1,000. So go figure. But, it's gone down since then because now we're down to the, 750, 550, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. When I was around, 650 was a lot.
Yeah. And then we used to have like 14-to-1 compression.
Yeah.
Back in up until around 95 or 6 or something like that. Then it back to 12-to-1. So anyway, yeah. So there used to be more, and then different size restrictor plates, of course, and depending on what team you were with. Well, we won't go there.
Yeah.
Sam, Sissy Odell, the harmonica for yourself. No, I typically don't play Happy Birthday to myself, but I thought y'all might enjoy that, get a kick out of it. And thanks to Janine for saying Happy Birthday to me and telling everybody. Jim Dooley says, thank you, Janine Plugline, for the assistance last week with my Hamm, but keep it a secret. Shh. That's right. It's a secret, yes. They tune into the radios in the morning as well. Sam Sharp says, Runt Pittman made the same comment on the top fuel motor and the RPM range per run.
Yeah.
Remember Runt Pittman from the Morgan McClure 4-car.
Very talented guy again. I worked there for a while.
Okay.
With matter of fact, I lived at Larry's house. Larry McClure that owned the team.
Yeah.
I lived with him and his wife when they got me to come up there and go to work. And I was living a couple hours away, so I just stayed at their house.
Okay.
And I'd go home on the weekends or something like that.
Did you bring your bell, your cowbell? Because that leads me to thinking that you might. Now, I don't know if it was when Ernie was there or when Sterling Marlin was there, or both.
I was there when Rick Wilson was there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
so you're going even. Yeah. So you may or not you might have a Tony Glover story.
We got the beer man in the house, but in honor of the beer man, we still want to bring the beer man in and hear your favorite Sterling Marlin story.
We do this every week.
Please,
So.
Mr. Cliff, tell us one of your best Sterling Marlin stories. 'Cause
I
we
don't-
ask all our guests that, and it's
I would like to point out that Cliff will keep it clean because he's a man of faith. He has a very strong faith. So
That's
go
okay.
ahead.
You don't have to worry about that.
That's all right.
Yeah,
He can talk about that after Sterling.
Or
It'll
Cuckoo
clear it up.
Marlin story.
Yeah.
Well, there was a lot. I mean, I was telling somebody the other day, my wife, I was explaining to my wife about how racing was back then. Mm-hmm. Everybody, Harry Hyde, G.C. Spencer, Cuckoo, and I'm sure many others, they all carried pistols around all the time. And G.C. Spencer would actually carry one in the race car under the seat. Because back then, everybody got behind. I mean, you were racing because you loved it. You didn't have sponsors. You just loved to race. And sometimes you owe people money. So the bill collectors would show up, and they just whip that thing out from under the seat right there. I mean, you never knew who was going to show up or if there was going to be a fight after the race. I mean, back in the early days, they fought, just like they do at the short tracks and
Sounds like
stuff.
they shot.
Well, if somebody comes up, like GC, he wasn't a very big guy. I think Soapy Castles is probably the same way. Neil Castles, but those guys, they all, because, it's kind of like me. I mean, once you get older, you're too old to fight, so you got to shoot. Because I sure don't want to get my butt whooped.
Yes. And that reminds me of a driver here recently. I think it was like yesterday or something. Whatever. He got in trouble for Snapchatting while on the racetrack, so he got kicked out of the sport. Like he's done, like banished or something for Snapchatting. So imagine nowadays if somebody carried a gun with them in the car. So whatever.
I don't know. Yeah, they probably don't want you to have them in the garage area. But
yes, that's probably true.
times change.
So did you have a favorite track along the whole NASCAR tour, or somewhere you really like to go? Or
Well, I really loved Riverside.
yeah,
I mean, no matter who I worked with or crewed for or whatever, we always did good at Riverside.
yeah.
And it's funny because I saw where Mike Beam had just finished rebuilding Bill Elliott's Thunderbird from his first win. And his first win was at Riverside.
Yeah.
We were leading the race with Benny Parsons. and it rained, and they threw the green for just a second, and Benny went down in the corner and just kind of eased off because it was raining. And, they throw the green like on the backstretch or something there. They don't throw it like they do at a regular track. They can throw the green anytime.
Right.
And Bill had never won a race, so when they went down the corner, Benny backed off, being cautious, and Bill, hey, it's his one chance to win a race. He dove down underneath of him, and as soon as he passed him right there, they threw the caution and came around, and he took the win.
Oh, how about that?
Right there.
I should get Mike Beam in here. Last time I saw him was at up here in Statesville golfing. It's been about 3 years ago or so.
He's a good
3 or
guy.
4 years.
Yeah, there's so many good people in racing. Tony Glover, like I said, was one of them.
Yes.
You know, Mike Beam, all those guys were just good people.
Sure. Yeah, I saw Tony Glover down at the SunTrust Bank last time I saw him. About 6 months ago.
But I don't think we can get Glove on here.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think Glove. No, we used to. When he worked for us for many years at the Coors team.
Yeah.
We'd do all the Coors promotions and everything, and Glove would say, "Hey, beer man, make sure you have beer in my hotel room." I said, "Yes, sir, Glove."
Yeah.
Okay, I took good care of Glove. Made sure. Yeah, he didn't come out to promotions.
No.
I think one time because we had to back in for a Daytona promotion. But other than that, no.
He might come out for free beer.
No. I took care of him. I put it at the hotel room.
Well, see, that was your mistake right there. If you didn't give him free beer, he'd come to do free beer.
And he was the one that actually gave me the name Beer Man. Because I'd deliver 50 cases every Friday, and he'd see me hustling to the garage area, dropping it off here and there. Beer Man, come here. And he had his Tic Tacs in his pocket all the time,
Yeah.
And he said, "Don't you forget me now." I said, "Okay, Glove." And I'll never forget the time. This is one of my good Sterling stories. So I'm back there delivering the beer, and I guess we qualified early that day. So Sterling left, and he was already back at the hotel while I was still delivering after I delivered at the track. And he goes, "Hey, you do Glove's room yet?" And I go, "No, not yet." And he goes, Hold on. So he gets that rubber snake, and he puts it, as I'm delivering Glove's beer, he puts the rubber snake under Glove's pillow, man.
gosh.
And so Glove's drinking that 12-pack or whatever I put in there,
up.
man. After 12 beers, he gets to lay down, man. He put the
That's pretty messed up right there. A snake. I wouldn't do that to anybody.
the next day at the track.
Oh, there's a few drivers that were definitely afraid of snakes. Richard Childress was one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glove couldn't wait to tell he saw me the next day. He goes, "Beer man, come here." I said, "Dude, that was not me, man. That was
Yeah.
Sterling the whole way."
I just know you wouldn't eat out of a bag of chips after Glover.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Hey, lots of fun with Glove.
Yeah. Go ahead, Phil.
No, there were a couple comments about pistol waving in the past, and one that was somebody met with Jimmy Spencer when he got out of the car. I guess Rick Mass might have, and that Soapy Castles carried a couple of guns under his seat, and maybe even a grenade.
I don't know about the
yeah.
grenade. I know they had pistols. Yeah, a lot of the guys did back then. Like I said, is they would fight regularly in the pits.
Now, this was
like that.
this guy talking about Dargan Watts. Do you know Dargan Watts?
Yeah.
Down in Daytona, where he's in that area down there. He lives in Ocala, I guess. But he's a legendary guy. He's got a lot of great stories. So he said Soapy Castles carried a couple of handguns and twice as many grenades in his truck.
I don't doubt that a bit. I know my cousin Bill Champion, just before I came to work for him, the guys used to play jokes on each other and stuff. And they would stay, when they go to Darlington, everybody stayed at the Thunderbird.
Yeah.
They stayed at the Thunderbird Hotel down there. And of course, the Thunderbird had a lounge, and that's why everybody stayed there. One of the few places that had a lounge.
Was that in Florence? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And anyway, they were staying there, and a couple of the drivers came in and got Bill and drug him out of the room and took him somewhere to get a drink, go buy him a drink or something like that. Well, the other guys, when they did it, they snuck back into Bill's room. And see, they were out there. They had one of those lawn sprinklers outside watering the grass. Well, what they did, they opened the door and slid that thing in the door and went back out.
Oh, my gosh.
So when Bill came back to the room, I mean, the ceiling, the walls, his bed, all his clothes, everything he had was soaking wet.
That's messed up. Well, that's a good story.
Yeah.
Good clean story right there.
Good clean. That's right. Yeah. So we can laugh about it now. Jody BRUCH says, "Great show. Love the old stories. Thank you for sharing." Absolutely. And we did need to mention Charlene Patterson.
Oh, no. I wanted to shout out tonight for Charlie Patterson.
Charlie.
Yeah.
Oh.
Charlie Patterson's
That's
been
what I
around
meant.
NASCAR for years. He was he's big in the IndyCar World Tour, but he's a good friend of a lot of people in NASCAR right now. He's suffering from COVID, so we want to keep him in our prayers and thoughts. To Charlie Patterson tonight, buddy. You get well out there in Indiana.
There you go.
Well wishes to Charlie.
And then you were wanting to talk about a few things with your faith, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, if it doesn't, if it doesn't bother anybody,
Not at all.
I mean, racing, racing's different. I mean, all I cared about was working on race cars. And I mean, I worked day and night. And I had girlfriends, you know, and when you're in racing, you're in a different town every week, you know, but you go to the same town twice a year, so you get to know people in town. So, you know, you had girlfriends, and it's like a sailor, you know, with a girl in every port right there, you know. And I had girlfriends over the years and stuff like that, but racing was the main thing that was important to me.
Yeah.
And then the first time it dawned on me was when we won our first race when I was with Benny Parsons over there. And I had been on a winning team in 1980 with Buddy Baker and Waddell Wilson over there.
Yeah.
And but this time I was the crew chief for Benny, and we won Atlanta. We won the Open down there, and or the Invitational, I guess it was. The Open. And then we came back and actually won the Atlanta race the next weekend.
Okay.
The regular race. And when we got home, well, no, we left the racetrack. And of course, traffic was so bad that we would try and stop and eat somewhere, let the traffic die down. When you came out, you could drive on home.
Yeah.
And we stopped at the Red Lobster. They're just up in Jonesboro. It's on the racetrack.
Garlic
And I brought the
biscuits.
trophy in and set that thing in the middle of the table. And we sat there and ate dinner.
Oh, that's cool.
And we get back, and all the guys are wives meet them at the shop, stuff like that. And everybody's, hey, we won a race, you know, and they're hugging and like that. And I'm just sitting there in the car, you know. I got in there and got the trophy, and I drove home. You know, and you walk in the door and just kind of sit there and, won the race. Guess I'll turn the TV on.
Yeah.
You know, and there was nobody to share it with. So it didn't really, you know, it kind of didn't mean much. And that's when it dawned on me that there was more to life than just the racing. You know, because you can win all the races and you're still the same person. I mean, there was an old song, you know, when something is that all there is?
Yeah.
You know?
That's it, yeah.
And, but I kept on for years. And then I met a girl not long after that. And we got married. And I thought everything was going fine. And it was the first time I'd ever met somebody that I cared enough about to marry. And anyway, we were together. We were together for about 3.5 years and married for about 4.5. And then I guess, you know, you're so involved in racing and stuff, you don't really notice what's going on around you. And she wasn't happy, and I didn't know how bad it was. And then all of a sudden, out of the clear blue to me, she just all of a sudden announced she was leaving, and that was it. And it turned out she had a boyfriend right there, but it destroyed me at the time. And that was in like October of '90. And the night she told me, I tried to kill myself. And then she took me down, and they pumped my stomach and did all those kinds of things, and all when she found out what happened. And then she moved out right after that. And then a month later, in November, I tried again. And then Christmas came. And I don't remember exactly which day it was. It might have been Christmas night or the day before, somewhere along in there. And I actually went and I took 2 bottles of sleeping pills and something else I found in the house. I forget what it was. And one of the guys with U.S. Tobacco, Johnny Bruce. I don't know if you ever knew Johnny Bruce or not. He worked with for U.S. Tobacco. Right there, he was really good friends with Harry Gant and stuff. But anyway, he lived across.
Scott's dad was with U.S. Tobacco.
Yeah, he lived around the corner from me. JB did,
right.
And Gary Brooks, that used to work for me. He's over at Penske now.
Yeah, I know Gary.
Gary's a good guy. Anyway, Gary lived across the street from me, and everybody knew I was going through a tough time. So Gary came over and knocked on the door, and I didn't get the answer. So he called JB, and he says, "I'm not getting the answer out of Cliff." I said, "I think we know we got to go in and get him." So they called the police, and they came and broke the door down. And when they did, they said I walked around the corner of the living room right there toward the door, and they said I was stark naked, and my eyes were rolled back in my head. All you could see was the whites of my eyes. And they put me on a stretcher and carried me out. And that was like Sunday night. And I was in a coma until about 4:30 Tuesday afternoon. And it's funny because the doctor walked in and he goes, son, he said, I want to tell you something. He said, you ought not be here.
Yeah.
He said, you took more than twice enough to kill you. And he said, and another thing, he said, it wasn't me that saved you. He said, I don't know why you're here, but you're here for some reason, and you need to figure that out. Because it wasn't me that saved you.
Wow.
So you shouldn't be here. Now, he never mentioned God, never mentioned anything. He just said it wasn't him, and he said, you're here for a reason. You need to figure it out.
Wow.
And I went home, didn't think more of it. You know, about a week went by, and Phil Parsons called me and wanted me to, he was running a bush team, wanted me to come be his crew chief for that. So the first day at work, I told Phil, I said, look, Phil, I said, I ain't handling this real well. I said, the first time I was trying to kill myself. I said, the second time I was crying out for help. I said, and the third time I was actually trying to kill myself. I said, I'm not so stupid. I said, sooner or later I'm going to get this right.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I got just the person you need to talk to. And he went in the office. He came back out. He said, you need to go down to Speedway and talk to Max Hilton with MRO
Right. Yeah.
down there. I'm like, well, we got a lot of work to do. He says, you go on down there. We'll be all right. So I got down and talked to him and pretty much just told him what was going on. And Max invited me to go. They had a retreat every year at the end of the season for all the racers down at Hilton Head. And they invited me to go down there. And Bobby Hillen's wife was pregnant, so she wasn't going to go. So I rode down with Bobby and shared a room with Bobby Hillen down there. And it's strange because, it didn't really mean a lot to me. I was still all depressed and tore up. And I got down there, and the very first day, they had some of the best speakers in the world, and it hit me. By the end of the day, I was like smiling and just jumping up and down.
Yeah.
And it was such a big difference right there. And when they got done speaking at the end of the day, I talked to Max, and he had some people that were kind of running the show for him, was Ron Pegram and Jackie Pegram. And Jackie's the one that really got going with the kids ministry at the racetrack. She's the one that did all that. But we were all in the motel room down there at Hilton Head and talking about how great it was. I said, man, this is the greatest thing ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And Max said, well, how'd you like to feel like this all the time? I go, yeah, put me in, Coach. This is great right here. And we prayed the prayer right there in that room, and I gave my life to Christ. But they asked me, I told them, I said, my wife needs to hear this. And we called her, and they were going to buy a plane ticket and everything to get her down there. And she just said, no, I'm not interested. She didn't want anything to do with it. So,
Yeah.
But anyway, I gave my life to Christ right there, and it pretty much turned my life around right there. Of course, it's not like you throw a switch right away. There were still sad times, and I'd go back working for Phil, and I remember some nights, one night especially, I was down there, it was about 10:30 at night, and I'm bent down behind a car. I'm kneeled down behind this car, and I'm just crying. I'm crying like a baby. I said, God, this is tough. And the phone rings, and it's Lake Speed.
Oh, yeah.
And Lake's like, well, Cliff, he said, I don't know what you got going on. He said, but God told me to call you.
Wow. He didn't know. He's just like, I don't know what you...
Didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
And I talked to Lake at the racetrack, but I didn't even know he had my number. I don't know. I'm sure somebody at MRO gave it to him.
Yeah.
He probably called him and said, hey, I'll get a hold of him. But there was a lot of people that, and it got easier and easier. And it's something I wanted to say that I prayed for a long time, because when you're a baby Christian, you don't understand everything. And I prayed for a long time for God to bring my wife back to me. And then after a while, it was a couple of months, and one day it dawned on me, because you're thinking God's in control of everything. And I'm praying that I want what I want.
Right.
I said, okay, God, maybe that's not your plan. Maybe that's not what you have planned for me, is to bring my wife back to me. I said, but I'm telling you, you either have to bring her back or you have to give me the strength to get through this, because I can't do it on my own.
Yeah.
I'm a basket case. And when I prayed that prayer, it was like a load off of me right then. And of course, she didn't come back, and she's happily married now.
Yeah.
I'm happy for her. We've got to be good friends and all. And I met somebody years later. It was probably, I think it was like 17 years or something between the time we broke up and I got remarried. So I've been, I think last year was my 10th anniversary.
Wow.
And married the greatest person for me in the world right there.
You know Daryl Barker?
Yeah.
That's probably the best story I've heard tonight. I mean, I heard some incredible stories, but that's the.
Hey,
That's the
very
one that
good
means the
story.
most.
Thank
You know,
Thank you for that.
all.
Thanks for sharing that.
I speak at colleges and churches and stuff around the country. When you're racing, you know, you're somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were out of town, the churches would call up MRO and say, hey, have you got somebody that can come out? And I would go speak at churches and stuff like that. And colleges and stuff at some of the, and I enjoy doing that. But now that I'm out of racing, you just don't get much call for that. But I still enjoy speaking at churches and stuff like that sometimes right there. But,
Well, that's the kind of stuff that people need to hear. I mean, really, you know, because I went through spells. I never did. Breakups was one of the hardest things ever for me to go through.
Yeah.
I never thought about taking my life or anything, but some people do, obviously.
Yeah.
But it was the hardest thing, you know, like I went through a breakup. I lost 20 pounds just like that. And so people need to hear that. And that's great.
it's a hurt that's deep inside that you can't hardly control it.
Yeah. Right.
I
And
mean,
they,
it's,
and they
if you
say
really
men, it takes them longer to get over
Yeah.
stuff than it does women.
Evidently, the women I know do anyway. They
Right,
get
yeah.
over pretty quick.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that with us.
Sure.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And do we have any comments on anything you wanted to
Oh, a
read
lot
there,
of
Phil?
people. A lot of people are happy to hear. It's amazing. You know, Rachel says it's amazing to see how God comes into our lives. Chad's good for you, Cliff. Thank you. Happy for you. Glad you're here with us tonight. Don Clark says, thank you, Cliff. It's amazing. A raw testimony. A lot of people love to hear that. Yep.
Well, I know it meant a lot to me. I mean, it changed my life completely.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I never was a bad guy, you know, but I probably wasn't a saint either, you know, and still not, you know.
You just didn't know how good you could be.
That's it. You know, you know the old movie where you complete me. Well, that's what did. I mean, there's that inside of you that's empty.
Yeah.
You know, and there's something missing. You don't have a clue what it is.
Yep.
You know, and when you find it, you know it. I mean, I tell people, I said, you know, when the Holy Spirit comes into you, you know it.
Right. But you have to let that happen.
Yeah.
People can
I mean,
talk
you can't
about it and
force
tell
it.
you about it. No,
exactly.
No, amen. Yep.
And until you experience it, you kind of sit there and you go, yeah, okay, that's fine for him. Yeah, but that's not for me. You know, I mean,
But the greatest thing is you can share your experience
Yeah.
every day of your life from here on out.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I like to do.
Yeah, we lost Max Helton. I guess I don't know how many years it's been, 4 or 5 or something.
no, it's been longer. It's been a while.
Yeah,
Been a good while.
He started at Motor Racing Outreach is what MRO stands for,
Mm-hmm.
and they go to all the racetracks and to and race shops. I know Joe Gibbs down there. They're big in
Yep. Bible
having
studies at
Bible
Yates.
studies. Yep.
At Yates's and stuff like that, a lot of the Bible shops. And one thing I like to mention is when they invited me to go to the retreat that year, that first year, right there when I was with Phil, and I told him, I said, look, I don't have two nickels rubbed together. I said, I mean, pretty much lost everything, you know, between all the marriage stuff and doing everything and everything going on. And he said, well, you just get down there, we'll take care of it. And it turned out that there was somebody in Indiana that owned a business up there, and they had told MRO, said, we've got some money, and if you get some people that need to go and can't afford it, we'll take care of it.
Wow.
And they paid for it
Very nice.
right there.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who it was for a long time, and I finally found out who it was, and they probably wouldn't want me to mention their name, but I've always been greatly indebted to them
Yeah.
for that. You know, that they think enough of somebody else to just not even knowing who it is.
Right.
You know, to just stick the money out there like that.
Yep.
So anybody that thinks your donations to charity or any kind of thing like that don't make a difference. They did with me.
Yeah.
That's all I know. I don't know about everybody else, but they did with me.
Yep. Very good. And you see a lot of people a lot of times they'll do something great, and it's fine if you're trying to kind of set an example for someone else to follow, but you don't always have to say that you did it. Just do
Yeah.
it and know that you're helping someone.
I kind of found out. I found out by accident, kind of through the back channels, who it was, because they never wanted anybody to know.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Right.
they didn't contact me or anything like that. But when we were up in that area, I got invited to speak at a church up there, and then later on, I found out that they were one of the people that were there, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, that's very cool. And I'm assuming you got to meet them and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
They'd
yeah.
be like, I got to meet them. I don't
Well,
care what you
I
say.
didn't know at the time.
Right.
At that time, I didn't know who it was, you know, until years
Oh,
later.
I see what
and
you're
I
saying.
finally found out who it was years later.
I got you. Yeah.
That's what you call good faith right there.
Yeah.
They had good faith.
Yeah, for sure. Man, very good. So yeah, I'll say everybody's pretty much saying they agree with what you're saying and they appreciate it. Yeah.
Sure.
So thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you for letting me share that.
Yep. So how can people, like, if anybody, okay, first of all, if somebody has a question or a comment after this video's over, you can go back on and ask the question or make a comment, and I'll make sure that Cliff sees it.
Okay.
I'll send you the message screenshot or whatever.
Yeah, I'd be glad to.
Yeah, and then he can answer your question, whatever. If you want to get in touch with MRO, any of that, Cliff can hook you up with that as well, because that is like I said, great organization and motor racing outreach.
They are. They helped out when James Hilton passed away
Yeah,
and stuff. It was a pretty tough time for his ex-wife, I guess, Evelyn, back then and everything.
Sure.
And all. And I went to the racetrack and talked to some people, and I got a hold of MRO. And they helped me go through them because I was raising money. I mean, you'd be surprised how popular James was.
Oh, he was
in
awesome.
the garage area.
Awesome.
And I mean, Richard Petty, he whipped his wallet out right then. Here, he wanted to start throwing out $100 bills.
yeah,
You know, Rick Hendrick, all of them same way. You know, everybody. You know, Felix, anybody. They wanted to just give money and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we found out that I mean, I didn't have any way to actually distribute or to collect this money, so we did it through MRO. You know, MRO, they jumped in and said, hey, we'll handle this thing for you.
Yeah.
So all the contributions are made through them, and that way it was a little bit easier for everybody.
yeah, for sure. That's why it hit Nick Ramey pretty hard whenever he passed, because he was really close to him. And
Yeah.
I was asking about Daryl Barker because, of course, he's Max Hilton's son-in-law.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's a great guy. So, any parting words for everybody? I see a bunch of hearts on here and stuff. So, Sissy Odell, thank you for that.
No, I'd like to say that racing was really, it was a great life. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't know of anything else I would rather do. I just kind of, the sport outgrew me.
Yeah.
And stuff there at the end. I never was a big race fan. I just loved working on them and loved trying to outdo somebody else.
Yeah.
You know, like to outfigure them on the setup. You know, beat them to get the pole or something like that. To outrun somebody. That was what I lived for.
Right.
Right. Was to do that.
Yeah.
Right there. But gosh, I mean, I started on my 21st birthday down there in Daytona. It was like join the Navy and see the world.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I hadn't been away from home much, you know, and you go down there and next thing you know, you're going all over the country, you know, and eventually you got to flying and stuff like that. But, you know, I'd never had a chance to see the Grand Canyon or do all those kinds of things before.
Yeah. Same with me. I would have never
Same
saw
here.
anything.
Me
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Me too.
I mean, it's-
Bridge,
I mean,
Niagara Falls, you name
Right.
it. Yeah.
But now, I mean, there is a downside to it. I mean, when you're racing, I tell people, and I'm glad I got out because there are other things in life.
Yeah.
And when you're racing, I don't care if it's your brother getting married or something. If it's a race weekend, you're not going to be there.
Right. Yeah. I know.
I mean, if you're especially if you're the crew chief, you know, the crew chief driver or somebody, you know, probably car chief or somebody like that. I mean, a lot of times you can get by without somebody on the pit crew. You can bring somebody in and sub somebody for that one weekend or something. But when you're the crew chief, you got to be there. And I don't
Yeah.
care if it's somebody's funeral or wedding or what it is.
Yeah.
You know, everything ties in. You know, when people ask you, when did you get married? Well, let's see. It was in between Daytona and Martinsville, so it must have been right here. You don't remember the date, but
absolutely.
it must have been the weekend between those
Yes.
two right there. That's the way you relate to everything. I went to the bank one day in Denver, right there, and I asked a teller. I said, "What day is this?" She says, "I asked her, what date? What's the date?" She goes, "It's Tuesday." I said, "No, what's the date?" She said, "The 16th." I said, "What month is this?" I didn't have a clue, you know, because you get up, you go to the track, you go. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
You work 8 days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
So,
much.
Yeah. So we're gonna do our spin the wheel, which is pretty much we're getting towards the end of our show, and see who can win a prize this week. So I will get your prizes in the mail, and I want to make a note on this as well. I have been held up on sending them out, but I'm waiting on my decals to get done. So it's up to my buddy Kudzu here. He's working on my decals. I finally decided on a design that I like and sticking with it. And so what I'm going to do is everybody that's won a prize so far, and if you go on my website, DHammiam.com, and leave me your email address as well as your mailing address in the message box there. And then I'll get you a decal in the mail. So
Ring.
spin the wheel. Need a little sound effect here. All right, so we're on the blue today.
Blue today is Carolyn Troutman.
All right, Carolyn Troutman is our winner today. So I'll get you a prize in the mail. I think I already have your address as well as Brett Troutman's sweatshirt. I've actually got it out in my truck.
Well, if they both go together, we'll just give them a new car.
There you go. So
124 scale,
Yes.
probably. But
Exactly. Yeah.
Valerie Champion says great show.
Oh, that's my wife right there. I
There
love
you
my
go.
wife.
Yeah, that's great, man. Sounds like she's a good woman.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah. The best I've run across. I'll tell you that.
She got her a good man too. Very good.
I'd hate to think where I'd be if it wasn't for her.
Yeah, I understand. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Cliff, and hopefully we'll get you back in here sometime.
Okay.
And
be glad
maybe
to.
we'll have another surprise phone call for you.
Yeah,
It was nice of Ricky to call in.
that was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure it was a surprise
It was.
if it happened. So he texted me right when I got here, or actually, thereabouts. And I had sent him a link earlier, so he said he could call about 7:30. So I said, yeah, 7:30 is perfect. Here's the number. And so, yep. Thanks, Linda Jinks, for tuning in, and Rachel Rodman. And everybody on here on our YouTube page, make sure you go back on and make a comment. And I've tried to leave this to where you can see all the comments after the video's over. And this time I went through and made sure that it should do that. So, but good night, everyone. And thank you so much for tuning in. Check out my Facebook page, Racing Roots with Hamm. And thanks to Phil Cavalli for joining me once again. And we're fortunate to have the beer man with us tonight.
Dear
'Cause-
man.
Shout out to my wife, Jana. I'll be home tomorrow, honey.
Yeah,
he'll
we'll
be
see
headed-
you in Speed Weeks, Jana. I'll be down
Southbound
there
and down.
too.
We headed back to Daytona, and I might end up going down there myself. So, but yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. And Valerie says, always enjoy listening to Cliff's stories. He's my biggest fan, or something like that. That's what she said. But yes,
She certainly is your biggest fan.
yes,
Right,
and
Cliff?
thanks. Yeah, go ahead, Phil. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying Cliff considers her his biggest fan too.
Yes, that's
Oh
right.
yeah.
yeah. And what does Rachel say there? That last comment.
Oh, Rachel Rodman, thank you, Jersey Cape Custom Yachts, for your great sponsorship. Thank you, Big Wayne and Janine out there.
That's right. Yes, thank y'all for.
And don't forget Billy Buck.
Yes, and Billy Buck, we're here in the WAME Randy Marion studio, and you can tune in to the Billy Buck Morning Show with it's Billy Buck and Hamm. And sometimes I say Billy Buck Morning Show with a side of ham, but you know that works too. I'll be
like
sitting
that.
here at 6 a.m. It'll be about 10 after 6, and Billy will hand me the things we're going to talk about today, and he'll sit over there, and we'll have guests come in. So we have a good time in the mornings from 6 to 10. So tune in on that 550 and 92.9 WAMEradio.com. So y'all have a great night, and we'll see y'all next Monday. Next Monday's guest. I better mention that. I know I kind of mentioned it earlier. It's going to be Larry Pollard. So
Good guy.
yes. So that'll be an interesting show.
Another great show.
Yeah.
Lots of great stories.
He was Phil's crew chief when I had Benny.
Mm-hmm.
They had the Skoll car, the 66, and I had Benny with the 55.
How cool is
Working at
that?
the same shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very neat, man. It's neat, in NASCAR how you always get to know people, and sometimes you don't work with them for a little while, but then it comes back around and you work with them again on another team.
And there's so many people you see through the garage area over these years.
Mm-hmm. True.
And you don't know their names.
Yeah.
You've seen their face every day. You work right beside them.
Absolutely.
I mean, James Hilton nicknamed me Rookie.
Oh yeah.
And if I went to see James probably 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Hey, Rookie.
Yeah.
Dick Beatty always called me. I mean, I was there for 26 years. Hey, Rookie.
How about that? We had a guy that worked with us at Rouse. We called him Rookie. So if I saw him now, and that was like 15 years ago, I would probably just call him Rookie.
That's it.
Yeah, even though he's not anymore. But anyway, so all right.